Good evening. My name is Samantha Anderson, and today I have with me my dad, Jeff Anderson.
Hello.
My grandmother, Linda Rosito.
Good evening.
And my grandfather, Mario Rosito.
Hello.
The specific purpose of this speech is to persuade my audience that the United States should declare an all-out war and utilize all of the nation's resources to eradicate ISIS and any European or American nation fighting with them. They are traitors to their country and should be treated as such. ISIS, also known as ISIL, the Islamic State, one of the biggest threats the world has ever known. They keep women under a man's power, a man's possession. In a region that has known so much bloodshed, these terrorists are unique in their brutality. They execute captured prisoners. They kill children. They enslave, rape, and force women into marriage. They threatened a religious minority with genocide. And in acts of barbarism, they took the lives of two American journalists, Jim Foley and Stephen Sotloff. As a citizen of the United States, I have kept abreast of the news relating to this subject. As we look into ISIS, we see there are many threats in which the entire world can be affected, including those who support and fight for this group. As a response, the United States has done nothing to remove this threat. To begin with, I want you to think about the effect that ISIS may have on you. Who has ISIS become a threat to? ISIS is a threat to all three worlds and anyone who does not believe as they believe. Day by day, more and more countries are receiving threats of attacks on their nations. In the largest counterterrorism operation in Australia history, 800 federal and state police officers raided more than a dozen properties across Sydney, sparked by intelligence that ISIS was planning a public street killing as a demonstration of its reach. Australia is not alone. The threats have hit close to home. The New York Police Department increased security in Times Square due to the plausible threat of lone wolf attacks. China as well seems to believe that its citizens, mainly from a group called Xinjiang, are fighting for ISIS. This year has seen a number of grisly terrorist attacks, including a suicide bombing on May 22nd, which killed at least 39 people and wounded dozens. Other attacks included the stabbing of 6 people, a suicide bombing, and the stabbings at the Kunming train station in March. These attacks are becoming more brutal as countries are seizing Muslim rights. The group has also publicized a map that shows their future plans of extending the group across the globe. As we look at our neighboring countries, it seems that we are not the only ones that have citizens supporting this terrorist group. Others are dealing with it as well. Now that we have seen the threat of ISIS, let us continue on with a deeper look into the people who support this group. Those who are leaving their homes in Europe, the United States, and Canada, where they have been suckered by those countries receiving the full benefits of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and are willing to go fight for ISIS, are committing treason. It's not something that you would believe, but this group targets young males in their teens and 20s for support. There are several reasons why these young men are interested in joining this group. 1, it appeals to their sense of identity and place, and 2, it appeals to a sense of religious obligation. Countries are struggling to prevent citizens from leaving to join the fight for ISIS. Sweden's security service announced last week that up to 150 people left the country to join the Islamic State terrorist group in the Middle East. The service further announced that 23 of them were killed fighting as members of such terrorists. Many countries are trying to take legal action to prevent this from further occurrence. Some are trying to prevent citizens from returning home after visiting Syria, and others are trying to strip those who visit Syria of their citizenship and passports. The debate over stemming the flow of foreign fighters has opened up new legal territory and raised the question of when and how countries should prosecute their citizens for fighting in another country's war. Since we have talked about the supporters of this group, let's move on to what the United States is doing or not doing to help the situation of ISIS. We, as in the United States, have not done enough to eradicate the growing threat of ISIS to the world. According to Army General Mayville, current U.S. airstrikes will not stop ISIS. The airstrikes can, at best, prevent ISIS from entering Erbil and provide protection for the Yazidi minority sect. The strikes will only have a temporary effect. Obama has put out a 6-point plan of how the United States is going to defeat ISIS. The plan consists of significantly expanding the bombing campaign in Iraq, training and equipping the Iraqi army and Kurdish troops, beginning to bomb Syria, train and arm the Syrian rebels, get regional actors like Saudi Arabia and European allies to be on board to counter ISIS regional and international influence, and keeping U.S. troops out of staying away from the Syrian and Iranian governments. Although we will be sending weapons and equipment to aid the Kurdish troops, there is always the risk that they will be captured, once again, by ISIS. Many Republican lawmakers doubt that President Barack Obama's plan to destroy the Islamic State is strong enough to accomplish this mission. The fact that troops will not touch ground in Iraq or Syria is a debatable issue, but will the other efforts be enough, or will forces need to be on the ground in order to enforce what's needed? I leave you with this thought. We, being weary of war, are not willing to dedicate the necessary effort to face this challenge. Yes, we are involved in airstrikes, but is that sufficient? Undoubtedly not. We were willing to shed blood to gain our liberty. Should we not be willing to shed blood to maintain it? Will anything short of an all-out war stop these brutal people who have vowed to attack our land?